Welcome to my second movie franchise ranking on the channel. It's been a little while, but I ranked all of the Rocky movies a little while ago on the channel, because in addition to my Star Wars Expanded Universe, Star Trek, and Soda videos, I do want to make some videos about pop culture in general. I'm a huge movie buff, and I love to watch movies. Nothing makes me want to watch a movie more than knowing that it's a franchise, with lots of other movies set within the universe that the story inhabits. Nothing makes me want to sink my teeth into a new movie than knowing that it's followed by several sequels. And what's better to do with movie franchises than rank them? And today I'll be ranking the Mission Impossible franchise. And the Mission Impossible franchise started with a television series that was adapted into a film series in the 90s and right into the 2000s. The movie series stars Tom Cruise, and he's absolutely charismatic as the main protagonist, Ethan Hunt. The television series it was based on was broadcast in the 1960s, and it was a spy thriller show with a new bad guy every week, a new impossible mission every episode, and basically just a lot of good guys winning against impossible odds. The show actually had Leonard Nimoy in it, best known for playing Mr. Spock in the Star Trek franchise, which is quite cool. The Mission Impossible movies, though, are miles better than any of the television series seasons were, in my opinion. So let's get into ranking these movies from worst to best. At number 7, I have Mission Impossible 2. Mission Impossible 2 commits several sins for me for why it can't be very good. First of all, Mission Impossible 2 took the approach that a lot of early 2000s movies did. It had the approach of make everything in your face, make everything bigger, flashier, and that should equal better. Instead, it equaled convoluted. The plot to Mission Impossible 2 is all over the place, and it commits a giant cardinal sin of having a Scottish villain. What is more unbelievable than a Scotsman as a villain? As someone of Scottish heritage who was born in Scotland, it is absolutely unthinkable to me how you could have a Scotsman as your villain. Scottish men are heroic and brave, and their accent conveys this strong, heroic, legendary, masculine vibe. So how can you have a villain with this Scottish accent? It doesn't work. If it was a snivelly English accent, then sure. But Mission Impossible 2's Scottish villain is absolutely irredeemable in my opinion. Other standout moments that were just kind of bad included the motorcycle scene where Tom Cruise slams into said Scottish villain at high speed, something that would have killed both of them and broken their bones, but they just get up and start smashing each other's heads with rocks and fists and flying kicks, and it's unbelievable. The heroine of this story is a female character who has a sort of relationship with Tom Cruise developing, sort of a romance over the course of the story, and she is never heard of again. I'm someone who believes in something that Star Wars author Abel G. Pena believes. Continuity is the story. So when a character never shows up again, it makes it frustrating to watch that character in that film, because you know that it doesn't impact anything. And so some of these strikes are what counts against Mission Impossible 2. Moving on from the abysmal chaos of 2000's Mission Impossible 2 leads us to number 6. Mission Impossible 3. Mission Impossible 3 was directed by J.J. Abrams, and as a Star Wars and Star Trek fan, this is a name that will forever scar me. This film saw Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt teaming up with a female protagonist named Julia to fight against an arms dealer named Davian. The arms dealer played by Davian turns in a very inspiring performance. There's a lot of nuance and depth to this villain, but I don't think that's the sort of performance that you would typically want from an arms dealer. Other than the great performance from the villain and J.J. Abrams' flashy, chaotic, over-the-top directing style, nothing sticks out to me about Mission Impossible 3, and it's honestly very forgettable overall, which keeps it near the bottom of this list. At number 5, I have Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Rogue Nation is super fun, as Ethan Hunt has to take down a evil group that is set on taking down the Impossible Mission Force. This evil group is called the Syndicate, which is a phenomenal name, and throughout the course of this movie, it really feels like the odds are indeed impossible and incredibly stacked against Ethan Hunt. There's a lot of fun stuff here, including the introduction of Rebecca Ferguson's character, who will be a returning character for the rest of the series. She's a great foil to Ethan Hunt because she's very mysterious in a lot of ways. And Rogue Nation is an absolutely fun, phenomenal movie, but it didn't reach the heights of its predecessor with Ghost Nation, which is a bit higher up the list. It's still flashy, it's still fun, there's some great action sequences here, and I really love Rogue Nation overall. This leads us to number 4, Mission Impossible, the first movie from 1996, which featured so many iconic scenes and sequences that are forever etched in pop culture memory. Scenes like Ethan Hunt's descent into the room that he can't touch anything in will forever be iconic in cinema history. Tom Cruise brings forward a charming performance, and it's instantly easy to see how this will become a franchise due to the power and charisma of the storytelling and the protagonist. This one is also quite dark, as the entire mission team that is supported by Ethan Hunt is killed rather quickly in the opening scenes of this movie, which leads to the intrigue, which leads to really all of the plot, and reintroduces a character from the television series, and reveals that the protagonist of the television series himself turns out to be the bad guy. He turns out to be a sellout, which was a twist that I and many, many others did not see coming. To bring back the character from the television series and then have him turn out to be the bad guy was absolutely a stunning twist. So it's got twists and turns and is overall spectacularly fun. This leads us to number 3, 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout. Henry Cavill is a terrific addition to the cast of Mission Impossible Fallout, and there's so many great scenes. Fallout is one of the longer films in the Mission Impossible franchise so far. There's so many great scenes in Fallout, like hanging from the side of an airplane, the final climactic battle on the side of the cliff. So many great, jaw-dropping, heart-pounding scenes in Fallout, which leads it to being a real adrenaline boost. The effects are great, the acting is great, the returning cast is great, as most of the team returned from Ghost Protocol. Sadly, Jeremy Renner was absent in this one, as he'd been in Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, and he was a character that I really quite enjoyed his chemistry with the rest of the cast. But you've got Benji back, you've got Luther back, great stuff. You've got Rebecca Ferguson's character back as well. Very, very good stuff. Very, very fun. Fallout is a boost of adrenaline, and it's terrific. This leads us to number 2, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Ghost Protocol is one of the first movies that actually had my heart pounding as I was watching it. Ghost Protocol has many absolutely terrific scenes. It featured Jeremy Renner's introduction to the Mission Impossible franchise. Benji returned after a small role in Mission Impossible 3, and it's great from start to end. From the beginning in Russia at the Kremlin with the bombing, the effects are so good. The scene with Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt being restrained at the hospital, having to jump out the window, that chase sequence is so good. And my favorite part, by far, has to be the absolutely incredible sequence in Mumbai, which was absolutely amazing. Scaling the outside of a building, creating the masks to wear, all kinds of super good stuff in this one. Jeremy Renner's performance is great. The entire cast really does a fantastic job. While I did mention that the only thing that holds us back from being number 1 is that the villain, I didn't think he was too good as an actor, and I didn't think that Paula Patton's character was super good either. Those two things are the only strikes against this one. Other than that, it's pretty phenomenal from start to finish. Really good stuff. And that leads to number 1, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which came out this year. While eventually I'll probably have to update this list because Part 2 is not out yet, which is supposedly going to be the final 8th installment in the Mission Impossible franchise, this is the only Mission Impossible film that I got to see in theaters, and I was blown away. With the state of Hollywood right now, where movies seem to be on a downward trend, as creatively they are less, as the name implies, creative, as they are relying on so much CGI that things just no longer look real and look like video games, with bloated stories, uninspired performances, and generic plots, I wasn't expecting Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 to be very good. But the returning cast with Luther, Benji, and Isla accompanying Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt was absolutely terrific. The cast still turned in a great performance. The actor who plays the villain was not the greatest actor that they could have chosen to play the villain, but Where this film succeeds and soars to number one on my list is the practical effects. Seeing the behind the scenes clip of Tom Cruise actually riding a motorcycle off a cliff with a parachute attached to him was absolutely mind-numbingly mind-blowing. It was insane to see that. And I truly believe that the practical effects work and the stunts work in this one truly makes it the greatest in the franchise. The scene on the train cars that was reminiscent to me of the bus scene from Jurassic Park, where they're climbing up the train cars. The addition of Haley Atwell to the cast, she turned in a absolutely incredible performance. She was brilliant in this one. The chase sequence with the mini cars where they're handcuffed together, absolutely great. Tom Cruise is still just as likable as he always was, even though he's a little older now. And what I really appreciate about Dead Reckoning is it treats its male protagonist, its legacy male protagonist, with respect. Luke Skywalker didn't get that treatment. Picard didn't get that treatment. So many of these legacy characters that were such a big deal and inspired generations of people, with Luke Skywalker, with Captain Picard, with all of these great characters from great franchises, when they're brought back nowadays, their wings are almost clipped and they're subdued for the modern audience. We see that with characters like Indiana Jones as well. They're sort of pushed a little bit to the side, pushed to a lesser role, or shown to be failures or washed up. Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt does not get that treatment. He's shown to be very cool, and other characters are shown to be really cool as well, like Haley Atwell's new character. Great stuff there. But Tom Cruise is not overshadowed. He still gets to be the main character in his franchise, still gets to be a cool character. The fight sequences are great, and the shocking death of Rebecca Ferguson's Isla is absolutely world-shattering, and it's possibly the biggest death in the Mission Impossible franchise to date. The only thing that sort of holds us back is I feel that Benji and Luther were sidelined a little bit, but that's a little bit intentional, I think. They weren't needed for the majority of the story, but overall, it's an absolutely phenomenal film, and that is why it is number one on my list. But what about you guys? How would you rank the 7 Mission Impossible films? Let me know in the comments.